think I can speak for every reader out there. Buying books and reading books are totally different hobbies, and so happens I excel at both of those. Hence why there's no surprise I went on a book shopping spree. I have no idea how much books there are. In my defense, I haven't bought any books since the month of January, maybe. This was a gift from me to me for living through winter and finally getting to spring. I have here the books I wanted to read for so long, the books I heard a lot about, and also new releases, and I'm so excited to share them with you. So I thought we're just gonna have a cozy book chat. Get comfortable, get yourself a cup of tea, and let's chat about books. There's a lot of books, and we've got no time to lose. So the first book I have here might not sound that exciting, but I've heard a lot of things about it. It's by Susan Sontag. And if you don't know who Susan Sontag is, first of all, you're living under a rock, apparently. And second of all, she's an essayist, a writer. She is famous for her essays on camp. I just heard a lot about her, and I heard that she's phenomenal, and people often put her in a row with John Didion, Eve Babbitt. And so I thought that the time has come and I just have to read her. At this point, I'm obliged to. Against Interpretation was Susan Sontag's first collection of essays and is considered a modern classic. Originally published in 1966, it has never gone out of print and has influenced generations of readers all over the world. It includes the groundbreaking essays Notes on Camp and Against Interpretation, as well as her impassioned discussions of Sartre, Camus, Simone Weil, Godard, Beckett, Lévi-Strauss, science fiction movies, psychoanalysis, and contemporary religious thought. This edition has a new afterword in which Sontag recites terms of her battle against Philistinism and against ethical shallowness and indifference. I just can't wait to read this because all of the themes that she evokes in this collection of essays in particular are my personal interests. So Simone Weil is one of my favorite writers, and Sartre and Camus' works were fundamental and one of the first French philosophers' works I ever read. So it's going to be very interesting to hear her talk about it, and I'm so glad that I found this one because that's exactly the edition I wanted, and I'm just excited to read it. Next book is by Alice Smith, and it's from her series, Seasons. I thought that it was logical for me to read Spring in Spring, and hopefully I will because it's the beginning of month of May, and as you can see, I have a lot to read, so hopefully I will read it in spring and not in summer. That will be kind of embarrassing. This is from her season series, Autumn, Winter, Spring, Summer, and there's also a companion piece. I want to read all of them, if I'm being honest, because I've read Alice Smith's short story collection and I completely fell in love with the way she writes because it's so sharp and just vivid. You catch the tune and you want to be involved in this dance with her. And most of the time I'm very skeptical about short stories, mostly because I am too attached to the characters and it's really hard for me to move on. But with her stories, you're just ready to take on a new adventure because you know it's going to be interesting and poignant. I'm so excited to get my hands on this one. I must say though, the font here is huge. Like, whoever was in charge of editing this book probably was blind because what is that? The book seems longer than it actually is because of that. What unites Catherine Mansfield, Charlie Chaplin, Shakespeare, Rilke, Beethoven, Brexit, the present, the past, the north, the south, the east, the west, a man mourning lost times, a woman trapped in modern times. Spring, the great connected. This is the impossible tale of an impossible time. That sounds amazing. That sounds so good. Hopefully it will bring me the freshness of spring, because right now the weather is very rainy and honestly it's been very cold so far and gloomy. Hopefully this one will revive my spirits. The next book is one of those books I've been hunting for the past year or so, and I finally found it and I couldn't be more ravished. John Didion, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. I wanted to get my hands on this one for the longest time. As I said, so many people have recommended it, so many people praised it, and I just couldn't get any edition anywhere whatsoever. And so when I saw it in the bookstore, I just knew I had to buy it, especially in this edition, because I feel like that's the most aesthetic one in my personal opinion. I also have been wanting to get West and South, but have been unable to do so because it is also out of stock everywhere. So when I saw this one, I just knew that it was a sign that I had to get it. We forget all too soon the things we thought we could never forget. We forget the loves and the betrayals alike. Forget what we whispered and what we screamed. Forget who we were. In her non-fiction work, John Didion not only described the subjects at hand, her younger self loving and leaving New York, the murderous housewife, the little girl trailing their rock group, the millionaire bunkered in his mansion, but also offers a broader vision of the world, one that is both terrifying and tender, ominous, and uniquely her own. I mean, I'm sorry, if that synopsis isn't enough for you to make you want to read this book, you don't have a heart. Are you sure you're a devoted reader? I'm joking, of course, but I cannot wait to start reading this book and share my thoughts with you. Now, the next book is all over the internet. Everyone is talking about it. BookTube, BookTok, you name it. And I just felt this urge to participate in this movement. And so I bought this book. Drive your plow over the bones of the dead. In a remote Polish village, Janina Tuseczko. I'm so ashamed right now. An eccentric woman in her 60s recounts the events surrounding the disappearance of her 2 dogs. She's reclusive, preferring the company of animals to people. Reminds me of someone. Who may that be? She's unconventional, believing in the stars, and she's fond of the poetry of William Blake, from whose work the title of the book is taken. Also reminds me of someone. When members of a local hunting club are found murdered, Janine becomes involved in the investigation. By no means a conventional crime story, this existential thriller by one of Europe's major humanist writers offers thought-provoking ideas on our perceptions of madness and justice against marginalized people, animal rights, the hypocrisy of traditional religion, belief in predestination, and caused a genuine political uproar in others, maybe Poland. Wow. Honestly, this sounds even more enchanting and engaging than it did sound when I read it first in the bookshop. Wow. Every time I read the synopsis, I just want to grab this book, open it up, and read it. It's so good. I'm so excited. I just have been seeing a lot of people talking about this book, and I also have watched the Service 95 interview with the author that Dua Lipa has done. Actually, I've been a fan of this podcast. I think Dua Lipa is brilliant at interviewing writers and giving a different perspective on the art of writing and on the books in general, and it is so refreshing to see because you can see all of these brilliant new voices actually opening up and talking about their craft. And so when I saw the interview with the writer of this book, Olga, it just marked me, I think, and I immediately thought I have to buy one of her works, and so I did. And in fact, I have another one of her works just right here, Flights. I just couldn't resist. I just had to, okay? I had to. Flight is a novel about travel in the 21st century and human anatomy, approaching life, death, motion, and migration. From the 17th century, we have the story of the Dutch anatomist Philip Weerheen, who dissected and drew pictures of his own amputated leg. From the 18th century, we have the story of a North African-born slave turned Austrian courtier, stuffed and put on display after his death. In the 19th century, we follow Chapon's heart as it makes the cover journey from Paris to Warsaw. In the present, we have the harrowing story of a young husband whose wife and child mysteriously vanish on holiday on a Croatian island. With her signature grace and insight, Olga Tokarczuk guides the reader beyond the surface layer of modernity and towards the core of the very nature of humankind. I mean, both of these are brilliant just based on their synopsis. It even has some pictures in it. Oh, I didn't see that. So cool. I'm really excited. I know that it gets really repetitive because I'm excited about every book. I genuinely feel like a kid on Christmas. This is a real gift to myself. From myself, because I have taken a pause in buying books recently because I bought a lot and I just thought to myself, okay, I need to read most of those and only then I want to buy new books. And so when I got the opportunity and when I realized that my bookshelf is almost empty and I have nothing to read, I told myself I deserve a treat. And so this actually feels like a reward of sorts, which is a problem within itself, but what can you do? I love books. I love buying books. Next book. I actually mentioned my intention on buying this book and on reading this book in my previous video. I think it was the one about the new releases in 2025, and I'm holding my promise because this is the book by Yukio Mishima, Voices of the Fallen Heroes and Other Stories. I also mentioned that I have never read him before. It is a huge miss on my part because I know that he's brilliant, and also I feel this urge to widen my horizons. I noticed that I read very little of Asian authors in particular, translated literature, and I think that's a huge miss and I should work on that, and I should educate myself more on the different cultures, different poetic styles, different approaches. I just couldn't be more excited to get into Japanese literature, for example. It's an unknown world to me and I long to discover something new. So I think this will be a very good introduction to his works, especially because these are stories and not one big book, so I can just slowly enter that realm. So yes, I'm just excited to discover a new voice, especially because everyone has been talking about this release and I saw it in the bookstore and I knew I just had to buy it, especially because I talked about buying it, so I practically manifested this one. On to the next one. This one has been in my to be read pile for a while, and you know I'm a fan of Sadie Smith. And you already know what book I'm going to brag about. White Tea. I feel like everyone read this book. As a Sadie Smith fan, I just couldn't walk past it. The cover though, don't know if I like it, and yes, I'm a person who still judges books based on their covers. I just can't help it. I'm sorry. But we have to work on the cover. Like, what is that? And that was the only edition they had in the bookstore. And because I was hunting for this edition for several months now, I just thought to myself, to hell with it. I'm just gonna buy it. So now I have this edition, but I still have it. And so I'm grateful. One of the most talked about fictional debuts of recent years. White Teeth is a funny, generous, big-hearted novel adored by critics and readers alike, dealing among many other things with friendship, love, war, 3 cultures and 3 families over 3 generations, 1 brown mouse, and the tricky way the past has of coming back and biting you on the ankle. It is a life-affirming, riotous, must-read of a book. I didn't notice though that Zadie Smith really likes writing about family dynamics. I just finished her book on beauty. It is also amazing. It just inspired me to read even more of Zadie Smith. I already was a fan, as I said. Buying this book was the right decision. For sure. I know that I'm going to enjoy this. I noticed that she really gets this family dynamic and different patterns that we as humans experience in family relationships, especially with our relatives. She captures it so beautifully. The fragility of such relations, the effort that has to be put in family, how we expect people to act towards us, but most of the time we end up failing their expectations is so brilliantly captured by her in On Duty, for example. So I'm really excited to read it and get reintroduced to her voice, because sometimes you just miss the voice of an author. I guess Zadie Smith is one of those authors that I find myself missing. Like sometimes I just sit and think to myself, I could use a good Zadie Smith book. I'm excited. The next book is one of those books that I wasn't planning on buying. However, I just couldn't refuse myself this treat. And I know I'm going to have a fabulous time. Look at this. I mean, are you kidding me? If you know me, you know that Clarissa Spector is one of my favorite authors. If I was to be sentenced to death, I would be quoting Clarissa Spector as my last words. I love her. The way she can describe everything a young girl feels and experiences is fascinating. And the way she puts into words something that you cannot explicitly say. I know that most of the works that I read of hers are translated, and unfortunately I don't know Portuguese. Like in this field I am absolutely hopeless, but getting to read her works, even if it's translated, even if I cannot understand them in their full capacity, is always an extraordinary experience. Somehow every time I read her books, I read them in right times, the right moment, and every time I hear her voice and I go through her writings, she speaks of things that I can relate to at the moment of reading. And I think the fact that I'm always brought back to Clarissa Spector and she always ends up capturing what I experience at the moment really symbolizes something. I think I have a special bond with her. So yes, this collection of complete stories by Clarissa Spector is definitely a special buy for me, an unexpected one, an unplanned one, but an essential. Clarissa Spector was one of the most blistering and innovative 20th century writers of the short story. This collection, gathering all her stories together for the first time in English, shows us abandonments and dependencies, animals too deeply loved and then eaten, the smallest woman in the world, moments of madness and passions that have the ferocity of a fork plunged into a good friend's net. Together, they follow the evolution of a writer capable of capturing all the incredible heat and wonder of existence. I mean, it's hot out here, and I'm not talking about the room temperature. I think I rambled too much about Clarissa Spector at this point, so I'm just going to stop right there and move on to the next book. Genuinely, this is one of those reads that I am just passionate about. One of the other books, and a very essential read too, is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I feel like everyone knows at this point what this book is about. It is a classic. It is many people's favorite book, and so I bought it. But I thought that it was paperback. However, it is hardcover, and it is my first hardcover classic Penguin book. And it's very cute. It's very tiny. I find it charming. As you know, I love Virginia Woolf. One of my favorite novels is The Waves, and I read Orlando, but I just didn't read the essentials. So here I am catching up. I'm planning on reading A Room of One's Own, and then I think of reading Mrs. Dalloway or To the Lighthouse, so that I could really get into her works. Doing my homework, reading new classic books. One of the last books that I bought was this tiny book. It is an essay by Albert Camus, Short Guide to Towns Without a Past, and I haven't even heard of it. I was already heading out of the bookstore and my eye just caught this edition of Penguin, and I haven't seen it before. So I got interested and I found this essay by Albert Camus, and you know me, if there is an essay by Albert Camus or a book by Albert Camus that I haven't read, I will get my hands on it. It's the same thing with resuspect, Sadie Smith, Simone Weil, Simone de Beauvoir. I'm that girl. So I just couldn't refuse myself a pleasure. And also, it was very cheap and it's pretty short. So I think I'm going to read it during my lunch breaks, enjoying it in the park. Best known for his existentialist novel, The Outsider, set in French-occupied Algeria, Albert Camus was profoundly influenced by the landscapes, towns, and traditions of his youth. Selected here are some of his finest personal essays about Algeria and its environs, including the luminous nuptials at Tipasa, one of his earliest works, where he developed the themes that would inform his later philosophy. To thrive now without hope or paradise, as mortal life alone can be worthwhile. I'm so excited to read this, mostly because we recently studied the history of Algeria and the Algerian War, and I personally was fascinated by the essays of Albert Camus on the resistance, and I know that he was very engaged in the resistance movement during the Second World War, especially due to the fact that in his novel La Peste, The Plague, he so beautifully described the town, and it was inspired by his home. To hear him speak of the landscapes again would be so refreshing, and I'm just excited to enjoy this read, to take a little vacation alongside Albert Camus, to be a tourist in Algeria alongside him. And finally, the last book I bought is by James Baldwin, Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone. At the height of his theatrical career, the actor Leo Proudhammer is nearly felled by a heart attack. As he hovers between life and death, we see the choices that have made him enviably famous and terrifyingly vulnerable. For between Leo's childhood on the streets of Harlem and his arrival into the world of the theater lies a wilderness of desire and loss, shame, and rage. And everywhere there is the anguish of being black in a society that seems poised on the brink of a racial war. In this tender and passionate 1968 novel, James Baldwin created one of his most striking characters, a man struggling to become himself. You already know that when I see a James Baldwin novel, I cannot walk past it. I will buy it. In this read, I wasn't planning on buying this book. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book, which is weird. However, you cannot tell me that when reading the synopsis, you don't have a desire to just grab this book and read it on the spot. If you watched my video about the books about vulnerability, you know that I adore James Baldwin for his honesty and raw wording. His style of writing is so vulnerable. It just feels like an uncle that is having a conversation with you in the kitchen, and I am so mesmerized, so moved by every word he writes. He has this faith in humanity and in human spirit. Every word he has put out there, I think, served and improved the general sensibility of us as humans. I don't know if I make any sense here, but I genuinely think that his works are essential if you want to know and learn how to be human, how to find beauty, even in violence, even in brutality that you experience on a daily basis. And through him, I experienced the suffering, the joy, the struggle, and I think the main lesson here is even in struggle, I must find this love for humanity, love for being alive. it is in this struggle that life is being known and is being lived. And so reading James Baldwin is just a whole different experience, and I cannot wait to read this book and share my thoughts on it, especially because I mostly hear people talk about Giovanni's Room or Tell It on a Mountain, but I haven't heard anyone talk about this one. Here you go. An unexpected buy, but a very exciting one. Here are all the books that I bought and that I'm really excited to read in the month of May, in the month of June, during summer. I honestly have no idea how much time it's going to take me to read all of those, but hopefully I'll enjoy all of them and I'll give all of them 5 stars. All of the books that I bought just spoke to my heart, and it truly felt like a gift to myself. Thank you for keeping me company. As always, it was delightful. I enjoyed our book chat. Let me know whether you like buying a lot of books or you are more of a casual reader. You love to pick up one book at a time and buy one book at a time. I would love to know that. Tell me in the comments whether you enjoy buying new books as much as I do. I think it's a disease at this point. Anyway, as I said, it is a different kind of a hobby and one of my favorite ones. Let me know what exciting reads have you bought recently. Maybe share some of your recommendations in the comments. I will be adding them to mine to be read list. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I wish you all the best and bye!